Okay, so let's start off with ESG, which, as you probably already know by now, that is one of my favorite topics. And I figured it'd probably be good to give you a bit of a background as to what the current regulation, especially from an EU perspective. We can also look at a bit of UK as well, but let's look at EU for now, and you'll understand why I'm saying that. Is in terms of the current regulation that exists. So I will pop up an article which summarizes this quite nicely, pop the link down below. But currently we have the European Sustainable Finance Regulations, which is probably one of the biggest, I guess, regulatory principles that we have in the EU that regulates ESG. And what does that really do? It basically just looks at, as the name suggests, sustainable finance, i.e. the kind of investment and the advisory processes that need to be adopted in the financial sector. So we've got regulations on disclosure, we've got regulations on taxonomy, environmentally sustainable activities, quite a few things. But like I said, do have a read of the article if you're interested in a little bit more about what regulation currently exists. Now, there's a couple of potential incoming regulations which I think are quite interesting, and the main one we're going to look at now is the CSRD. I think its acronym is basically it's the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. It hasn't come in yet, so bear this in mind when we get to how you can speak about it in interview and stuff like that, but it's something that is on its way to coming in. And essentially what it wants to do is it wants to oblige companies, and we're going to look at the definition of companies because that's what makes it quite interesting, but it wants to oblige companies to identify, prevent and mitigate human rights and environmental violations in their value chain. Now, that's something that I really want to unpack because I think that is just so super cool in the evolution of ESG. Why do I say this? Well, first of all, there's been an argument, I guess you could say kind of recently, and I kind of see the argument, but there has been an argument that when people speak about ESG, what they really just mean is the E, because there's been a lot of talks about all of the different environmental things people can do. We've got, working towards net zero, we've got trying to reduce our carbon footprint, we've got trying to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and moving more to renewable energy, all that kind of stuff. But all of that just focuses on the environmental. You could argue, I guess, that there's some kind of indirect impact on the social, not really much to do with governance, is it? So for a long time, ESG has kind of just focused predominantly on the E. This directive would change that because it, first of all, explicitly names human rights. So you would be forced to have to think about the social, obviously, as well as the environmental as well, because it does name environmental too. But then you would also have to think about the governance because it's, I guess, directing or obliging companies to act by this by doing X, Y, Z, which we're going to go through. So that is actually quite interesting if it does end up coming in. Now, remember at the beginning, I said I wanted to talk about the definition of companies as well before I get into how you could bring this in an interview or bring it into your applications if you're, depending on the type of application question you have. And the reason why I say this is quite interesting is because by companies, I can't remember the exact figure, so I'll just pop it on the screen, but I think it said something along the lines of companies which have like in terms of the products or services it has, which serve over 250,000 customers in the EU or something like that, which is pretty much any big company, like literally any big company. It's crazy. Which means that whether the company is, like, its headquarters are in the EU or not, the company will be caught out by this directive if it does become implemented. So that is quite an interesting thing as well, because again, it would be one of the few, if probably not one of the only, because I can't think of any other regulations off the top of my head, but I will do my research, but it'd be one of the few regulations that actually, I guess, force, quote unquote, a unified approach to ESG, because it's going to make every single company that falls within this definition under the directive follow these rules. So that would be super, super cool. Now, like I said, I'm going to attach all of these articles that I'm referring to so that you can do your own background research. But what I want to focus on for the purposes of this video, so that it's a bit more helpful for you, is how exactly you could talk about this incoming regulation in your upcoming interviews. Now, first of all, if you get a lovely generic question where someone is kind of like, tell me about a recent news story that interests you, this is a gold mine for you. It's a gold mine because it obviously shows that you're commercially aware, and it shows that you're commercially aware because you're staying abreast of the market. By abreast of the market, I mean you're talking about something that hasn't actually come in yet, but it's something that people are potentially trying to plan towards because it looks like it might be coming in. So that's a big, big, massive tick for you. So you definitely want to, if you are interested in ESG, consider speaking about this if you get that kind of generic question where someone asks you to just talk about whatever you like. In terms of your structure, like I've kind of mentioned in other previous videos, and like I just did in this video, I would start off with a bit of a kind of I guess, summary of what current regulation exists. Now, it's up to you whether you would want to look at all of the different markets, i.e. look at the US, look at Asia, look at Africa, look at the UK, and look at the EU, because I guess those are your predominantly 5 kind of main markets in terms of ESG. And then you would then want to go into the EU is looking to bring in and then explain there. And then you would want to go into what challenges and what opportunities this could present for your firm. Now, I can't give you all of the different challenges and opportunities that possibly exist, because every single firm is going to have different challenges and opportunities. But what I can try and do is give you some generic headings that you then might be able to go away and think about for the particular firm that you're interested in applying to. So you've got things like an increase in clientele. That's a good opportunity. And your increase could come from the fact that, you know, if there are particular clients who maybe only do ESG investing or only work in the ESG space, and then you are kind of like a thought leader in this kind of ESG space, then they will want to come to you. On the flip side, you've also got a challenge, because if you are positioning yourself as a certain type of, you know, ESG firm, and you've got clients who maybe don't comply with your ESG principles, the question now arises as to, are you going to stop acting for those clients? Are you going to ask those clients to change the way they do their business? So that's a challenge that you might want to bring up and kind of discuss. And obviously argue both sides and then come down onto one side so that you can show that you've got some kind of logic and reasoning behind what you're saying. So those are 2 really obvious challenges and opportunities that you can kind of go through. Some other ones that you might want to go through is an increase or a change in the nature of work or the type of work you'll be doing. So as I've kind of mentioned in previous videos, when anything new comes in, so when we've got new regulation, there's probably always going to be some new litigation coming along with it. Why does that happen? Because no one really knows what this new regulation is actually going to do until it's put into practice. So when it's actually implemented and when it is actually put into practice, you'll find that there are a lot of companies, you know, I guess testing the waters, as it were, and that will then give rise to litigation. So if you're interviewing at a firm which is really, really big on litigation, then maybe that's something you could bring up there, because it shows that A, you see what it is that the firm does really well, but also you have an understanding of what tends to happen when new regulations come in. So that's, again, a win-win for you. So hopefully that's some good examples of how you can speak about this new, really, really exciting ESG regulation that could be coming in. Remember, like I said, it hasn't come in yet. And like I said, I'm going to link a couple of articles down below that you can check out for yourself if you want to learn a little bit more about that. The next incoming kind of potential regulation, although this one I think is probably a little bit more certain than the ESG one, is on cryptocurrency. And again, I do quite like cryptocurrency, but more just for, you know, investing purposes. And it's quite interesting to learn a little bit more about from my personal perspective. I will once again link this article down below. I found a BBC article, which is really, really cool in terms of talking about the incoming UK Treasury changes that might be coming in. But what we've got is that the Treasury has announced that it will regulate some cryptocurrencies as part of a wider plan to make the UK a hub for digital payment companies. Again, I love these summaries because they're so easy to unpack and kind of give you a really great structure to speak about when you're at interview, or when you just want to kind of show that you are commercially aware and you know what you're talking about. So let's look at each of these things in turn. First of all, we've got the fact that there's regulation. So it wants to regulate some cryptocurrencies. Kind of like what I was saying with ESG, whenever we've got regulation, there's probably always going to be some litigation because people don't necessarily know what's going on. We've also got advisory as well. And again, I think this is something that I've spoken about in some previous videos. But when new regulation is going to be coming in, one of the first questions clients are going to ask you is, what does this mean for our business? What do we need to do? If you are a good lawyer, you will get ahead of that. So before the client even asks you, you will show, we've seen that this regulation might be coming in. This is what it means for a business like yours. This is what you should do. So you as an applicant, knowing that you know this now, what kind of things would you maybe say in an interview or in your application to show that you have a good understanding of this and you can demonstrate that you are actually clued up and you're commercially aware? Well, I think this would actually be quite a good place to maybe talk about a deal. And again here, this is very firm specific because I can only speak of firms that I know of who have done some deals in the crypto space. But if you are applying to one of those firms, and if you're not sure which firms they are, drop a comment down below and I can suggest some firms that have done some deals, and I can link the deals that they speak about in the comments as well. But if you're applying to a firm that has done deals in the crypto space, this would be a great time for you to pick up on one of those deals that they've probably posted about on their LinkedIn and talk about how you as an applicant find that interesting because you know that there's going to be some new regulation coming in from the Treasury. and you think that one of the impacts of this new regulation could be that, you know, it will provide more work similar to the deal that you've just mentioned in your application. It will also show that the firm that you're applying to is a thought leader in that space, because they've already kind of carved a space for themselves with the particular deal. It could also provide more advisory work, because the firm would be able to advise its current clients who are in the crypto space on similar things and on this regulation that's going to come in. And then also litigation, like I mentioned before. So there's quite a few things that you could mention in your application specifically, but you could also mirror that in your interview as well. If you are either asked about a particular deal and you decide to go down this route, or if you're just generally asked to kind of speak about something you're interested in, or speak about something commercially awareness based, and you decide to go down the crypto route, then I would say that this is particularly interesting to talk about. The other aspect of this article that I think would be quite good for you to speak about, again, in either your interviews or in the application, is the fact that the intention behind this regulation is so that the UK becomes a hub for digital payment for companies. Now, that is super interesting, and again, provides a whole host of, you know, challenges and opportunities for firms that you might be applying for. Why is that? If the UK becomes a hub for digital payments, you're going to find that companies all over the world which are trying to do digital payments, so for the most part, a lot of these companies are currently in America, because obviously Silicon Valley, there's a lot of digital payments there, but you're obviously going to find companies elsewhere as well. They're going to start coming to the UK to do their business, i.e. bringing in money to the UK. Now, that's obviously great for law firms, because if they're going to be bringing money into the UK, well, London lawyers or UK lawyers are going to have to give the advice on that, right? Because they're the ones who are qualified to be able to deal with that. So that's super, super good, and a great opportunity for you to speak about. It's also, again, a great opportunity for you to show that you understand how the law firm as a business works, because if the UK becomes a hub for something new that it's not already a hub for, that means there's going to be an increased pool of clients in a new area. So if, like I said before, you're applying to a firm which already has done some work in this kind of digital payment space, but maybe they're looking to expand their reach there, then this is a great opportunity for them, because if the UK becomes that hub for digital payment, then it makes sense for new clientele to want to go to a firm that has already established themselves as, you know, leaders in this space, right? So that's, again, another opportunity that I would say that you should talk about. Yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of my update on both ESG and crypto. Now, I know I do normally speak about COVID and Brexit as well. The only reason I'm not going to speak about COVID and Brexit in this month's update is because there isn't really any new COVID and Brexit related regulation for me to speak about, so there would just be nothing to say. But next month's plan is to talk about some deals that have come up in some of these 4 areas, so I will definitely get back to the COVID and Brexit updates next month as well. If you like this kind of content, please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe. Give me a follow on Instagram, sign up to my mailing list. Basically just join the SWS community, and let's help each other grow.